Hello, and welcome to the Black Robe podcast. I'm Carol Mitchell, and I'm excited to introduce tonight our brand new co-host for the Black Robe podcast. Morgan Smith is debuting tonight with me, and she has great news to tell you about the organization that she leads. We're going to be collaborating on some work with youth and young adults. We're going to be talking about the Tacoma for All initiative #1. It's going to be on the city of Tacoma's ballot coming up in just a couple of months, and why we are supporting that initiative. And then third, we're going to tell you about Black the Vote, because we want all eligible voters, people who are eligible to vote, to be registered to vote, because guess what? If you're not registered, you can't vote. If you don't vote, then don't be fussing about the laws that you don't like, because you have an opportunity to shape and influence what's legal and what's policy in your city and in your county, and state. So we want you to be engaged in the political process. You can see 84 of our previous Black Robe podcasts. I think this might be 85. I might be off by one or two. It's all up on YouTube. It's up on our website, instituteforblackjustice.org. And if you need something, services for your family, if you're dealing with the child welfare system, or you've got a young adult that needs to get engaged in some social justice activities or some advocacy work, or maybe they need an internship, you can give us a contact. Just send us the contact form on the website, and we'll get back in touch with you and see what we can do to support you and your family and your community. So welcome, Morgan Smith. We want you to introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do at Brand New. That's what I'm just going to call it, Brand New. Together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carol. I'm so excited to be a co-host tonight on this episode with IBJ. And thank you for the introduction. So my name is Morgan Smith with Brand New, Together Young People Emerge. We highlight the mental health illnesses that youth and young adults face that lead to opioid addiction. We provide housing and stable housing, transitional housing, and short-term housing solutions for youth and young adults in Pierce County. We're slowly moving and building our base out in South King County, but year to date we serve about 96 youth in Pierce County today. And it's just a joy being able to work with these young adults, and then also to connect with strong community partners that are also providing services, because together we can actually see change and emerge these young youth's lives.
Love that.
Yes.
It's a great vision. And maybe just give people an idea of what your typical youth or young adult client comes looking for when they knock on your door or contact you on your beautiful website, which we'll give people. What is it they're looking for, Morgan?
Right. So a lot of our clients typically look for housing supportive services, and that includes rental, moving assistance, holding deposit, pet fees, things of those nature. They may just need help with the application, and they may have another organization that helps with the moving assistance. But being able to be on that front line and finding them assistance fast and being able to serve them within a 3-day period, because when the individual does the intake, we're able to give a 3-day turnaround with supplying them with the check to send to their landlord or to their prospective landlord. And so having that option, sorry, you guys saw my son.
We love it. Hey, we're talking about youth and young adults.
Yes.
So we don't have any problem with youth running behind us in the background. That's who we're talking about. He can join the conversation. It's no problem.
And he's great. You know, I think having that influence over my son has been pivotal in my own life. because he can see his mom work in the community. And so he's just such a community rounded individual. But yeah, so as far as what Brand New contributes to Tacoma, we provide a fast turnaround. Individuals are typically calling into the 2-on-1 system to where they're then being matched with an organization. And sometimes that match takes longer than 90 days as their standard procedure of getting connected to a referral community partner. And so we kind of just take the initiative. We've partnered with Away Home Washington that has the funding for individuals exiting the juvenile court system, mental health rehabilitation centers. They could be having a drug or opioid addiction, issue or, addiction. And so we help and assist them to obtain permanent housing. They could be in foster care. So if they're up to 13 to 18, they can utilize the housing voucher that's offered. And it's up to $895. And they're able to use that up until their age 25. And I think those opportunities are vital because I meet them hands-on, boots on the ground. It's not I'm sending you to someone else and I'm not holding your hand the whole way. I'm really working with you to build a portfolio of success. And I found that in times, a lot of those individuals want to come back and work for me. And so another thing we
Yeah.
do is we provide internships. And our internship program is connected with a WorkSource peers. Because unfortunately, we just don't have the funding yet to provide it on our own. But those individuals, when they're looking for that employment opportunity, we connect them with WorkSource. There are funders. They come work for me. They learn soft skills with clerical work, administration work, and just building those interpersonal and personable skills with public speaking. And they end up turning around to want to be entrepreneurs. So I'm very excited just about
Yeah.
what that's like for them.
I'm looking forward to the collaboration with the IBJ's ACES program. And hopefully at some point, if not tonight, then in the next several weeks, our audience will get a chance to meet Faith Rasmussen and
Yes.
our new intern Isaiah will be with us as well. And UWT and PLU will both be well represented in the house in
Yes.
just a couple weeks. But the ACES program is trying to identify that next generation of social justice leaders, people like yourself who are young, but who have a big vision and who have a heart for community, but just
Yes.
maybe need to be amplified and put on
Yes.
display and supported with some of our financial resources that some of us old folks have access to. We don't mind sharing, especially when
Right.
there's a vision that involves improving communities. So we're happy and looking forward to the collaboration. You've already started doing some work on your ACES side of the balance sheet. And one of those big assignments that you and Faith have been working on is the Tacoma for All Initiative 1. I know you went to a partners and collaborators meeting on September 11th, and there's a ballot measure coming up in November.
Mhm.
Let's talk about tenant rights and Tacoma for All. What do you want us to know about that initiative?
Absolutely. And those who don't know, I think Tacoma for All is an amazing organization to just get behind. I know there is thousands of renters living in the city of Tacoma, regardless of the degree, race, gender, or ethnicity. And I think everybody as a whole could benefit behind this initiative. And so they held their first advisory council meeting on 9/11, and I was honestly really blessed to be a part of it. And they want to just have people know that community partners, action partners are invited to these initiative advisory meetings. And it's constantly open to the public. So if anybody has kind of a desire or a heart or a passion to get behind a great action, this is it. Um, and just to start for some big updates, there's been some opposition fights with landlords. I mean, there's people out here creating, developments as their own business. And we get
Right.
that, right? We understand that. But I think that with that, they have their own. Um, they kind of have their own coalition of community partners or other landlords that kind of rally together, right? And they kind of feel like, these laws are kind of out to attack them when they're not. These laws are being put in place, or these initiatives are being created for the individuals that are residing in their units. And I
Right.
think that a lot of times they don't have a voice. And now this initiative is coming up to be that voice. And so, one of the things that I really wanted to talk about, because we could talk about Jim Henderson, or we can talk about the people that are coming to these meetings, but not everybody may know those people. So, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to start off with some of the responses that Initiative One is facing. And so, one of the lies Initiative One talks about is that under the measure that taxpayers would be responsible for paying tenants relocation costs, because that's one of the things that Tacoma for All really wants to push in this initiative. And they also address that this could be very expensive and require a whole new city bureaucracy to payments, um, make payments and to enforce, i.e., when people don't make their rent, right? Sometimes when
Mm-hmm.
you're leasing, you find neighbors that become problem tenants. Maybe their music is too loud constantly and they're not very receptive to asking to turn the music down. Maybe they just don't want to follow the rules or guidelines that, the apartment complex has. And, we get that. But for the working class families that really are trying their best, to make ends meet, but to also make rent, well, there should be laws applicable for those individuals. And so Tacoma for All says that for their response, that the measure taxpayers would be responsible for paying the relocation costs of these tenants. They say no. They say landlords must offer relocation assistance when tenants are forced to move due to rent hikes
Right.
over 5%. So that
Right.
doesn't mean that you should, just because you're moving or you want to leave, because you're
Yeah.
deciding to go somewhere else, that they should pay that relocation cost. No.
And let me give you an example of how there's already some of that going on in the city of Tacoma now when the Tacoma Colored Women's Club took over the Nettie J. Asbury house. There was a tenant living there who had been there for like 15 years.
Wow.
And we didn't even raise the rent, but we needed
See?
to have her move because we needed to we were gonna totally rehab the
Right.
building. I mean the house. It needed a lot of system work. There were going to be people in and out of there all the time. It was not conducive to having a tenant because of the nature of a complete historic preservation project. It was going to
Right.
totally disrupt her life. So we paid a significant amount of money to relocate her and her, I think she had 5 children,
Wow.
significant amount, way over what we actually had to pay because we understood the impact it was going to have on her. And then the housing authority also kicked in with their rental assistance because she had a Section 8 voucher. So some of that's already going on. Landlords shouldn't be surprised about relocation expense. And then I want to contrast that to one of my disabled family members who doesn't drive, um, is disabled, and needs to live somewhere where she can walk to the grocery store and the bank and the post office. And now the place where she's lived for years is priced out. She's almost priced out. And if it were not for those of us in her family helping to subsidize, she would be without a place to live. And she does have a Section 8 voucher. But, there has to be a balancing of the landlord's right to make money on their investment. I
Sure.
get it. You want to make money on your investment. We don't want, we don't want to have a chilling effect on new development,
Right.
affordable development. But at the same time, there are people who have lived where they've lived for
Yes.
years, like my family member,
Yes.
who cannot afford to be relocated or to pay rent increases that are greater than 5%. So this initiative just caps how much of a rent increase you can make
Right.
without having to help pay for that relocation. And hopefully that relocation assistance is also some housing navigation because
Correct.
people can't find
Yes.
affordable housing anywhere anymore easily.
Right. Because it's not there. And I was going to point on that. So thank you, Carol, for mentioning that. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing in place to even guarantee with the relocation cost assistance that the individual is going to be able to put that money towards a new place and have that rent rate suffice for their income, for their household. And so I think that a lot of times, even if they are getting that relocation assistance, it's gone like that because
It
now they're
is.
having to use it for a hotel or food or clothing. Like it's not being put back in to effectively help them find another, income restricted
Well,
or
or
an
there
affordable unit.
the the cost of the tenant screening fees.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. This woman had spent because she had to pay for every person living in her house over 18. There was a tenant screening fee. She
Mm-hmm.
had 5 kids, 2 of them were over 18. So every time she applied for an apartment, she had to pay that $50 fee for 3 of the 6 people in her family, her and the 2 kids over 18. Multiply that times, 6 houses that you work,
Yeah,
and you start to see the impact even of the tenant screening process, which I think is a scam
it is
in
a
a lot,
scam.
in a lot of cases.
It
Somebody
is.
goes in the back room and runs your credit report and calls that a tenant screening and charges you $50 for it. Now
Well, and it's
if somebody's 18, how much
yeah.
tenant how much tenant screening do you need to do for an 18-year-old that's been living with his mama all his life?
The other part to that is they also have the holding fee. So some of these places charge as much as $400 to hold it once you made that application fee. And sometimes these portals that are now getting more involved in tech, you can't even submit the application without providing that $250 extra to hold
We
the
pay
unit
it.
that you're not even approved for.
Yeah, IBJ, we pay those fees sometimes for our clients because they don't have $150 every time they apply for an apartment, only
Yeah,
to be turned down after the tenant screening,
right.
fee. It gets to be oppressive. So it's a balancing, and I think that's what our some of my friends are landlords who keep their rents affordable, but there has to be this balancing
It
between
does.
you're making a profit and people being completely priced out of the market in the city of Tacoma.
Absolutely.
We are not Bellevue, but our rent is pretty, Tacoma rents are pretty doggone close to
I chuckle at
Bellevue.
Bellevue since I'm out here. But
So
yeah,
what's one
no,
of the other lies that's out there about the initiative?
yeah, but I absolutely agree. And I'm going to the landlord um, act right now. And, another thing that they were talking about is along the lines of what we were just speaking on. By capping rent below rate of inflation, measure one makes it harder for property owners to maintain their properties and will lead to more lower quality rentals. So, as we probably pondered that and have a response, Tacoma for All said Initiative 1 does not include a rent cap. Landlords remain free to hike rent as high as they want, per the Washington State rent control ban. So there's bans in place. And so I think to
Mm-hmm.
fight against this initiative for ideas aren't really being sustainable when there's laws already put in place.
Yeah, yeah. Those aren't really legitimate arguments.
Correct.
And listen, you're going to either be a slumlord or you're not. So
I've had a
I mean,
few of those.
I look at my house as an investment. If I own a piece
Yes.
of property, owning it means I have to maintain it at
Yes.
some level. And Yeah, part of that needs to be passed on to the tenant, but you're also gaining equity in that. That's an
Yes.
asset that you get to leverage for all kinds of other things you might be wanting to do. So don't act like rent is the only value
Right.
that comes out of owning property. You're gaining
Correct.
equity value at the same time. So
Correct.
I get it. I understand that you want to pass some of that cost off to the tenant, but do you have to pass it all off?
Right. I mean, depending on how many tenants you have per unit, I mean, and how large your unit is, yeah, it's a lot. I mean, there should be at least a couple allocated to fair housing market prices. I mean, to at least make it that where people can afford it and they want to come back. I mean, retention with rentals is the biggest thing. I think people would need to love to live there, and they would tell their friends that they love to live there. Regardless of how much you charge somebody, that doesn't mean that the building is going to change. And so I
Right,
think that they try, because then you're going to have to put the cost in redoing the building, making, improvements, making adjustments to suffice the amount that you're charging people for rent. If you end up kicking out those individuals with that rent hike. And so,
don't poor people have a right to decent live? I mean, come on, part of this is an equity and fairness issue. It's like, well, if you can't pay $2,000 a month, you don't deserve to live in a decent apartment that has efficient appliances and clean water,
right.
um, where your bedroom is not a closet that you can't even fit a bed in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just some of it is just basic human dignity that we're talking about
Correct.
here, that people just deserve a right to safe and clean and affordable places to live. And especially people like my family member who've been living in those places for 15, 20 years, right? Part
Right.
of the solution too is the federal housing voucher, the Section 8, the number of
Yes.
vouchers that are being given out. I don't think it's changed very much over the years.
Correct.
It's a lottery system, and
Yeah.
it can take you 5, 6, 7, 10 years to even get your
If
name
that,
on the list high enough to get a voucher, right?
yeah.
Well, we
If
could
that.
talk about it all day, but I know, tell us when this is going to show up on the ballot and how people can get involved in the initiative.
Absolutely. And so people can get involved by either supporting the initiative, donating the initiative. There was one thing that I wanted to speak on is they asked a question. They said, how can we get housing organizations to support this initiative, or how can we even get individuals to support this initiative? And it's honestly by showing up. Ballots will be mailed out on November 20th. If they can get 2,600 people to vote, they will actually win this campaign. I think that they're already on, the trail of seeing that path. They're seeing that end of the tunnel. One of the valuable markets that they're going towards is individuals likely to vote, voting progressives, and working families. So if you see them knock on your door, please say hello. If you see them on the street walking around canvassing, please say hello. I'm going to add the sign up link here in the chat for individuals that are interested in signing up. I think that we will definitely be out there assisting. So please, if you see us out there, say hello. But
Yeah,
year to date, they have raised over, and this is just by individuals and labored individuals. They have raised up to $72,000 for
very
this
good.
initiative,
Yeah, because a
and
lot of
so
people want there to be some balancing of making money on housing and also making sure that people aren't priced out of living in Tacoma. Tacoma is a great place to live, and lots of different kinds of people should be able to afford to live here, not just one type. I do want to check that date because I think the election voting is October 20. October 20. It does say November in their notes, but it's October 20. And the general election is November 7th. So yeah,
okay.
October 20, the ballots come out and the election is November 7th, and we expect folks to be registered to vote. I do want to welcome Isaiah Lenard. Hello, Isaiah. He might not come on camera tonight. He is our new IBJ intern who'll be doing some work on some of our projects with us. There's his handsome face. Hi, Isaiah. Welcome. Do you feel like introducing yourself and just telling us a little bit about who you are and where you go to school?
Yes, for sure. Thank you for the welcome. I'm so happy to be here. Sorry I was running late today. There was like a little family emergency that happened. Um,
I'm
but
glad you took care of your family. Your priorities are in the right place.
I appreciate that. Thank you. My name is Isaiah Lenard. I go to Pacific Lutheran University. I'm a fifth year student, finishing up my 2 degrees in sociology and then gender, sexuality, and race studies with a minor in nonprofit leadership. And yeah, I just joined the organization. I'm very excited to be here. I'm especially like literally, like, I was just talking about this topic with my family because 'cause I'm in the midst of moving and, like, stuff like that, so, like, I'm very into this topic, and I love what you guys are doing, so I'm happy to be a part of the team and continue to, like, give what I can.
Well, Isaiah, thank you. And thank you for helping us with the appropriate pronunciation of your last name, Lenard.
Yes,
Very
look,
French.
I don't know where it came from, who knows, but yeah, it is what it is.
It sounds like it has a little bit of a French flavor to it, but we're
Right,
glad to
right.
have you here. You are our second PLU intern, and so we're grateful for the partnership with PLU. Faith Rasmussen is representing University of Washington Tacoma. She is taking care of family tonight too, and you know what? We're That's a high priority for us, taking care of yourself and taking care of your family. So thank you for your dedication and commitment to showing up. We do want to talk a little bit about Black the Vote, which is our next big thing that's going to be happening. Isaiah, yeah, will be part of that along with Faith and with Morgan. Morgan will be back here in just a second. There she is. What'd you do? Did you go fuss at the baby boy? Is that what you did?
No, I sat quietly and did it. So I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Yes, it's okay. He's being himself. But we want to talk a little bit now about Black the Vote because when an initiative like the Tacoma for All Initiative One is on the ballot, it's there to benefit the people who oftentimes their voices are not heard at City Hall. They don't have a lobbying group like a lot of our landlord associations may have. They don't have, the palms that the ability to grease the palms of certain legislative power brokers. They don't have huge sums of money in their bank accounts to help fund things like Initiative One. And so we want people to be registered to vote because that's free. That's something that almost everybody over 18, unless you have had your civil rights taken from you as a result of a felony conviction. And even then, you can get your right to vote restored if you meet certain criteria. And you need to check to see if you're eligible to get your right to vote restored. If you need some help with that, guess what? IBJ can help get you connected to an attorney who can evaluate that and help you do what you need to do to get your right to vote restored because you need to be able to vote so that you can influence your own life. The policies and the laws that impact your life are at stake here. Things like tenant and landlord laws. If you don't like the fact that your rent can be raised well over 5% without your landlord having to do a thing to help you move, then you need to vote. You need to be registered to vote and you need to vote. So let's talk about Black the Vote, Morgan, for just a few minutes. And Isaiah, if you've got a comment about that, you are welcome to speak and shout out to everybody in your demographic because you know the 18 to 25s are the ones who aren't registering. You guys are going to have to help me understand why not. But Morgan, talk about Black the Vote and what you have in mind.
Sorry, I was having technical difficulties. And so I'm so fresh kind of minded with Black the Vote. I think this is about the second meeting that I've heard about it, but I think it's so important to educate our Black peers about the importance of voting. And then it trickles on, I believe, kind of honestly down the pipeline of the people that we affiliate ourselves with. And then I think just having the understanding about there is no scarcity mindset to voting. Honestly,
Mm,
if it's regionally or nationally, our vote really does matter. I think us standing true to what our beliefs are as Black or African American people is super vital and important to our society. And then also to ourselves is believing what we believe and not differentiating off of it. It's just really standing true to who we are.
so why don't 18 to 25-year-olds vote? I mean, Isaiah, I want to hear from you on that, and you too, Morgan. What is it that is so distasteful? Is it that you think only civil rights baby boomers are supposed to be doing? Are we the only ones that care enough about it? And I'm only being just a little bit
Right.
facetious about it because we in our generation, we're the ones who really, laid down and died for the right to vote.
Right,
So
right.
we have a deep conviction about it in our generation. So Isaiah, why aren't 18, 19-year-olds registering to vote and voting?
I'll try to answer the question as well as I can, considering my own context and just being that like I don't speak for all 18 to 35-year-olds, you know what I'm saying? But I can say this much. Um, I feel like I feel like people are like over time when you vote and things change and like we see beautiful change, but just the ways in which the system still fails us. I think for a lot of young people, especially with social media, we get a lot of access to see the ways in which the system is continuing to fail us, despite us exercising our right to vote. And so I think a lot of
Mm,
people genuinely know that like, okay, it's incremental type changes that can happen with the vote, right? I feel like that's kind of the feeling, the understanding of it. But I think there's a general consensus when it comes to younger people that nothing big will happen. So why even like,
mm,
why even fully involve myself? And I do believe, I think as I get older, I realize like, nah, like voting can do lead to big change, especially when we're talking about housing and stuff like this. And especially going through like my own little housing thing, understanding how inequitable it is, especially to people like my family, being from like a low income Black family, trying to do this process. I think you start to understand as you get older. So I think for a lot of the people my age who are in that like late teen, early 20s type stage, it comes with time where you start to understand that like, okay, maybe I should vote because when it comes to me getting to this next place, it's gonna help so much and I won't be like targeted or when it comes to like unfair like profiling and discrimination when you're applying to these places and stuff of that nature.
yeah.
Again, I think it's a thing of perspective, but again, I think it's a lot of just the hopelessness you can feel when you see such terrible things happen. Like, why are you trying to vote when you see someone get assassinated in the street? Like, you have
Mm.
bigger things to fry in your brain, and there's just a lack of trust in the system. But if I was to be very honest, that's my opinion. So yeah.
That's good to know because as we push out, launch the Black the Vote campaign, which we've been teasing folks on social media already. Um, we need to be able to speak to that point of view and to the hopelessness. We need to be able to counter that with an answer or an argument. So you just gave yourself an assignment, Isaiah. Welcome to IBJ. If hopelessness is one of the reasons why 18 to 35 or 18 to 25-year-olds don't register and don't vote, what are we going to say to them this year that might inspire them to make a different decision? The other piece of I mean, there's registering and voting for like an initiative one, right? The tenant Bill of Rights. So there's something like that could have a direct impact on your ability as an 18, 19-year-old young person. You're trying to get that first apartment. The Tenant Bill of Rights is something that could very well impact your young life, like right now today. But also, you have a chance to be voting for people who will keep pushing forward your perspective and prioritizing the kinds of things that you think are important to get done. So um, we're thrilled that Jamika Scott is running for the Tacoma City Council this year because she's one of those 18 to 35ers pushing and shoving on the system, trying to get it to change. And I think you're right, Isaiah. It changes incrementally. Um, but it sometimes, I mean, barring a revolution, sometimes if we get the right people elected and you have a critical mass of Jamika Scott sitting on a city council, then big shifts can start to happen because it only takes 5 out of 7 votes, or sometimes 4 out of 3. Most times, four out of 7, will get a simple majority, will get something new done. So is it that there's too many old baby boomer crusty people running for office? That's why y'all don't vote? Talk to me about that. What about when there's a person that you need to try to vote for?
I think sometimes, given that, their demographic or their race, may seem like that's something that could sway the vote, or people would mainly kind of like vote in or buy in kind of to their idealism. I think kind of what Isaiah was talking about is systemically, there's just been so much oppression just around like having the right to vote and having your voice heard, kind of like what I was saying earlier, that individuals just kind of give up, like he was saying. And I think the lack of better words is saying that it's the lack of education. And I think if we provide honest and education materials from individuals like Isaiah and I to really just take the stand and say, hey, this is the change we want to see. This is why, and give actual viewpoints on it. Well, then individuals will have their own objective to take forth from that conversation. But I think when individuals don't kind of look like them, around their age, don't really vibe like they vibe or flow like they flow, well, then their blockers or blinders are kind of, because then they're thinking, oh, well, I'm being kind of pressured or told what to do or swayed in an opinion. And so I think that it'd be very beneficial. And I was talking to Faith about this earlier, a couple weeks ago or last week, is us actually sitting down and doing a YouTube recording or, a recording about what IBJ stands for, what Black the Vote actually means, what the ballot actually, entails, and really go in depth from individuals that look like them. Because we see a lot of following happening with social media because it looks cool, it looks good, it's intriguing, it catches the eye. And so I think if we provide materials like that, well, then people will start becoming engaged and curious, and then it opens up their minds more about being receptive to
that. Okay, there's another assignment. Thank you.
I'm down.
Isaiah, you want to make any final comments before we close this discussion for tonight? Any final comments about voting for a person and how who might be running could impact interest in voting?
For sure, yeah. I think what was just hit on was super important. Like when you can see yourself in the person that's like advocating for you, right? It's super different than when I have this, like for myself, and when I have this older gentleman who's representing my whole area. He kind of cares about me. I don't really know if he like vibes with me for real. So I feel like definitely when you can see yourself inside the person who's representing you, like if that's actually proper representation in a way. Because if they're a representative, should they not be representing me? So I fully understand. I fully agree with that. And I think education is a huge point. For me, I didn't get civically engaged until like my senior year of high school. There was a teacher named Mr. Bowling at Lincoln High School, and he was my only Black teacher growing up, and he really got us all locked in when it came to understanding like the power we have. Because along with the hopelessness is this feeling of like, how much power does this vote really carry? Because we understand how the system, even when you put in place the representative you vote for, like, is he going to vote your way? And all these other factors, right? Like, I feel like people either don't have enough education or they have so much education on it that they're like, either way, they're like, So I feel like really making people understand that like change can happen in incremental steps, and then eventually it can be transformative, is really good. So that's kind of my
I
thoughts.
love it. I'm encouraged just by the two of you and the work that you're going to see that Faith Rasmussen has put in to the Black the Vote kit, and Tia Harris Dalton is putting in. You all will be helping to inform the social media postings and some of the graphics, and probably our next podcast. The three of you will be running the show and talking about Black the Vote in a lot more detail. So stay tuned to our audience. Stay tuned for that. It's going to get gooder and gooder because, as you can see, the young folks, it's going to be a young people takeover on the Black Robe podcast. And I am very happy about that. We hope that you enjoyed tonight's conversation. We want to make sure that you know that you can find out more about the Tacoma for All Initiative 1 on their website. Morgan, maybe if you can check real quickly and get us a website. We'll have that as part of the social media posting. Also, Black the Vote is coming up. We're kicking it off this month in September. More to come on that at the next podcast. And welcome to Morgan Smith and Isaiah Lenard and Faith Rasmussen, who could not be with us tonight. They are my co-conspirators, my collaborators, my co-designers of the new and improved Black Robe podcast, and we are thrilled to have them with us. It's www.tacomaforall.org, tacomaforall.org, if you want more information about Initiative 1. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on the
Goodbye.
Black Robe Podcast. I'm Carol Mitchell. Bye.